Everyone, welcome back. How to start a business. We're going to go from employee to entrepreneur. So if you stick around for this episode, you're going to learn everything it takes to go from someone who works for someone to potentially exploring working for yourself. And believe me, as someone who's been in the 9 to 5, Jason has as well, the grass is greener. The grass is green where you water it. And we're going to teach you how to do that. So I'm going to say it again, mate. Thanks for letting me use your studio again. The invoice is in the post.
This is all sponsored by Always Free.
There we go. We got Always Free and we got the cup of coffee. But look, we are jumping into it. We're not going to waste your time. We are going to teach you how to go from employee to entrepreneur. So, without further ado, we are looking at a few stages of what it takes to go from someone who has been conditioned. I use the word indoctrinated, although that sounds pretty strong, but I actually spoke about that on a video on the way up here. Someone whose belief system is, someone who thinks that you need to work for someone, and how do you really transition? Because most belief systems actually come from, we're not even challenging your belief system, we're challenging the parents' belief system. That's really what this is. Yeah. And hopefully you're going to come away thinking, actually, I could give this half a crack at working for yourself. So let's just run through it, right? So learning the game. There's an internal rewire that needs to be done. Network and numbers, market and validate, systems and scale. Would you say, Jason, that that's kind of a good breakdown of going from the employee to entrepreneur? Would you add anything?
Yeah, no, that's it. I always talk about the concept of knowledge, income, equity, and that's a much more dumbed down version of what you're going to break down here. So yeah, for sure.
Cool. Well, look, we're going to start with learning the game. But before we dive into these, I just touched on the belief system. And I did speak about this coming up here today on a car vlog. We are actually challenging an economy, a society that believes, again, just to go over this, that you need a job. And that belief system typically comes from your parents, those that are around you, people who whisper in your ear, sort of your social circle. How do you break a belief system before we get into learning the game of entrepreneurship? Because it starts from there. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of it is being... So, unfortunately, the school system teaches you everything about how to work for a corporation, an old style corporation where you go and work and you sit down and shut up and exchange your time for money, and you don't copy other people, and you don't you don't get out of hand, and you don't put the spotlight on you, and all the stuff that I remember about school is the exact opposite of what you need to do to thrive, actually. And I think a lot of the people that struggle with starting their own business or being an entrepreneur is the fact that, but I learned that way. My parents told me that was right. And that can actually stop you from unlocking all the opportunities and going into entrepreneurship in general. How do you get around it? You get around it by having your beliefs changed, right? So getting out and seeing, instead of when you see people and you think, oh, well, they got lucky or whatever, asking them how they done it, asking mentors, asking people, what is working? How have you managed to do that? How have you, and seeing it happen and getting like a belief transference that, well, they're just like me. They've done that, so I can do that. And the more you get around that and open your eyes to the opportunities and possibilities of that, the better. So just I guess that comes down to just looking at people around you and asking yourself, have they done something or haven't they? Do they have the same belief system as me? And then maybe trying to change your network a little bit.
I think you're absolutely right. Default is something that I spoke about again on the way up here, is that we're so used to going, well, those are the rules and regulations. Well, that's what everyone does, right? That's what normal society does. We're so used to letting go of accountability that as long as we fit in with what everyone else is doing, there's no ownership, so we can kind of go along with the herd. I think the people that whisper in your ear is one of those big things that really impacts typically where you go in life. Like, I think about all the conversations that I used to hear in my old job. And it was all moaning about how bad things are and, you know, the actual system itself and people at work. And it was constant like doom and gloom. And although I'd already put myself in a headspace of sort of entrepreneurship and I knew that I had this plan to get out, I did think if I had no plan and I constantly heard this negativity of the mortgage, the car payments, the catching up on paying for the holiday on a credit card, and I really could see myself 20, 30 years looking back and thinking, where the hell has my life gone? And then also kicking myself because I thought, I'd look back and I think all those people that I listened to and I followed suit, they've ended up nowhere.
Yeah.
So the whole mindset and the belief, really, it is a huge part of those that you surround yourself with. So look,
I'll give you an example. When I started my first business, I started it with a goal to become financially free. So I was basically abusing the business to pay myself as much as I can to put into wealth creation, assets and investing. And my accountant, who had studied accountancy for 6 years at uni or whatever, he was like, well, you know, this isn't how you should manage the finances. And I said, I'm not building an animal of a business, an empire. I'm becoming financially free. And he didn't quite get it. And then my financial advisor was telling me to put things into, you know, really, really low risk, like pointless stuff. And I walked out of that job one day. Like I literally just did not need that job anymore. And they still to this day doing that job. There's still an accountant. There's still a financial advisor. One of them's nearly 60 and one of them's like nearly 50. And they're still doing accountancy and financial advice.
Do you know what's really funny? I saw a meme. You've just made me think of a guy. I won't say his name. I used to go to school with. His first name's Edward, right? He's a really smart guy in maths. And I used to be the guy that used to try and copy people in school. You know, I think we've learned, actually, a lot of people that look outside the window at school are the creative ones that don't want to follow sort of suit and the norm. And I remember Edward would always cover up his answers.
Right.
Now, Edward recently connected with me on LinkedIn, funny enough. He's still in a job.
Right.
But he was the one that was incredibly intelligent. But, you know, he'd cover up his answers. And these sort of people who are very good at academia and like, you know, the people you're talking about, they still stay in jobs. And I just want to start from the beginning before we go into like learning the game of business and how you can make that transition. I believe it's all because of the suppression of creativity. So you spoke about this a lot, you know, like when you're younger, you have dreams and, you know, you could be anything, right? You really believed you could be anything.
Yeah.
Even when you look at a job interview, it's a form of suppression. They'll ask you questions. Your answers have to fit within that path. You know, you can't sort of go off, like you have to give a certain answer. And also they'll ask you things such as, you know, do you have any business interests outside of the workplace? And your answer has to be, no, I'm here to serve. I'm here to do the task that I'm sure you're going to give me. And when you accept that job and you're told and you're assigned everything, again, that's where creativity gets lost. You don't believe that there's any way of to earn money other than the thing that you've been given. And something that I actually shared on another video is that some people feel gratitude and grateful for having a job. And I'm not here to, I don't want to bash jobs, but I don't feel that the gratitude or being grateful for an unfair exchange of time is something that you should get comfortable with. Because then again, like you said, it's kind of going, well, everyone else does it, you know. I'll just quickly mention something, right? I don't know what your take on this is. I heard this on a YouTube video and I thought, I've seen it and I've heard it. A LinkedIn badge of honor being attached to like titles and corporate roles and seeing it as a badge of honor. I also feel that that's another barrier for you to go and explore something for yourself, because again, you're putting a title on a pedestal and you're showcasing it to everyone else. And it's weird because everyone congratulates you on a promotion, but they won't do if you start a business. They'll tell you how risky it is.
I know. Yeah. I've never been one for titles, to be honest. Like I never, in all my years of business, I refused to have business cards. I just didn't want a title on a card. And to this day, I don't feel comfortable labeling myself anything, really. Even when people say, oh, how do you want us to introduce you? You know, I'm just a person.
Same,
you know? I'm just someone who does stuff. And I think that is a trap where you can fall into this trap of chasing that next title or next promotion. And I said the other day about, like, I see everyone on this kind of train where you get on a train and it's like you're told that one day you get off and it's like paradise, but these people seem to go on the train and then like the whole world's like flashing past the windows, and then every now and then there's like a station where the doors open and you look out and you think, oh, that looks nice, you know, there's a hot chick or a hot man, or that mountain looks beautiful, or it looks peaceful, and then they go, nah, I'll just get, you know, I'll keep going, and they keep going, and then the train crashes, and then they realise, bloody hell, you know, my relationship's fallen apart, my finances all over the floor, I should have got off back there, you know, I should have got off back there, and I should have gone with my gut. And I think that's this train of life that I think a lot of people are on, following this trap that the promise is there eventually, but it never comes until it's too late, unfortunately.
Mate, it's so crazy you say that. So, but look, before we get on to learning the game, I just want to share, I commented on one of Simon Scribb's recent post where he went up to a woman in the tube, right? And he, you know, he's helped a lot of people. We can't knock it. He's helped so many people start their businesses, the ones that really took action and, you know, had a wake up moment. And he went up to this woman and said, you know, what's your dream? And she was waiting for the tube. And she started saying, I would love to have my own cafe, and I would love to close it every time I've sold out and then reopen like little pop-ups or something like that. And he said, what's stopping you? And all this kind of stuff. And then she turned around and the tube turned up and she said, oh, sorry, I've got to go. This is my tube. And he said, just tell me more about you. And she said, sorry, I've got to go. And she got on, and I commented, and we'll pop it up. I'll get Mac, my editor, to pop it up on screen now. I'll go and find it, my comment. And the comment got hundreds and hundreds of likes and loads of comments on what I said. And I said, isn't it mad? And doesn't this just prove how indoctrinated people are, that she couldn't have waited 2 other minutes for the next tube to explore this conversation with Simon, just to see where that led, even if it was just inspiration, or just to hang on another 2 minutes, knowing that a train is coming. But she was so almost programmed, I hate to say it, to go, I have to go now because this is my train. And it's that motion, and it's breaking, again, going back to the belief, it's breaking this cycle of, you don't need to get on the train, as you just said, like,
I think
it stops.
Knowing when to get off. Like, so knowing when to get off is knowing when enough is enough, knowing when you're content, but also in a job, it's knowing when you've the job has, like, you've outserved the job, like the job has played its part in your growth. Because I do think you should get a job to learn things. There are certain aspects that you need to learn, and you need to pick up skills, and a lot of the businesses and opinions and values and methodologies that you'll create are around seeing the flaws in a particular job or a business, because you know, you're doing it right now, right? So you see things that are wrong, and then you go, I would do it this way, and then you have an opinion on that, and you can grow from that, and you can share that. And there's a point in time where you need to understand where that door opens and you can get off, and that, I think, comes from what you said before, just knowing what's available, what the possibilities are. And
like you say, knowing your whys, you know, having a reason as well. But yeah, absolutely take a lot from it. But I think self-awareness, and you said it on our last podcast, is like ultimate wisdom, having that understanding that, you know, actually there's more to life. And it's all about time as well. Like the unfair exchange of time is something that I came to a realization very early on. But look, learning the game, right? So let's just run through this. So books, physical or audio, networking, ask the rich how they got rich, you know, get a mentor, work in a startup business, master money management, reverse engineer successful businesses, right? And blueprints. Learning the game of business, it's clunky, it's rough. I mean, prime example, before we started this podcast, I'm starting a tech software company. I haven't got a clue how to start a tech software company. So I need to ask a lot of questions and learn the game of tech and software now, and get the right people into the business. Is there anything else you'd add here? And let's just touch on a few points, because there's no perfect answer, but it is a combination of all of these, isn't it? And it's just repeating this process.
Yeah, you have to start. You know, you basically have to start and learn as you go, and you don't know what you don't know. So networking, absolutely. Asking people what worked and what didn't work, I think that's a big one. If you can, I just see life as this period of time where you just want to live your best life for as much of it as you can. So the quickest way to get there is to bypass all the things that didn't work for people. So if someone's already done something similar to what you want to do, your main priority is to ask them what they wouldn't do again, you know, so that you could just, as the crow flies,
avoid it.
Avoid it, and you shave off all of these kind of dips in the growth. And if you shave all them off and go straight as the crow flies to the thing, or as close as possible, then you've saved lots and lots of time, and you've got a massive benefit. Working a startup business, you know, all of these things are what I would advise. No.
If I could go back when I started in the 9 to 5, do you know, that's one thing that I would have done. I would have worked in a startup business.
Right.
I have to say, you know, Daniel Priestley obviously talks about that. A lot of people do say that. And if I was to change anything, I think I now understand the value of working in a startup, just because you can see everything moving and the components and the logistics of how it happens. I think you would just learn a lot quicker than going into, you know, like I did, just technically a normal job.
Yeah.
You don't get exposure of everything that happens to make something successful. You kind of see an end product and you end up being a bit of a cog. Is there anything?
Yeah, plus you're forced to be more of a Swiss Army knife in a small team like that. You have to do more things. You know, you've got multiple roles usually than just one role. You know, you're not just HR deputy head or
that's it. Yeah,
you know, it's something that's quite
a lot of strings to your bow in the early startup phase, especially. I think
and you're not great at any of them. You're just a bit good at all of them.
No, and I think probably one of the skills where I think is the biggest holdback for a lot of people is sales, because you can replace any job, but you have to sell something in order to make money, right? And I think that's something that's quite daunting for people is selling.
Yeah.
But selling has changed so much. Like, selling is not hard selling. Like, you don't hard sell anything. I don't ever see you selling. No. I don't actually sell. In fact, there's not even one video of me actually selling. So selling has changed, but I know that scares a lot of people. One here, though, master money management. Obviously, you're big on managing your money and investing, but I am a believer, if you cannot get to grips with a freaking salary, I don't think you got a chance in business at all.
I think, like, if there was one key bit of information I'd give to anyone, obviously earning money and building freedom and wealth, that's two totally separate things. But just by, like, most people have one bank, the money comes in, and then there's a crack in the bucket and all the money's gone by the end of the month. Just by, like, putting a tap on that and understanding what's going out, and then setting up sub accounts so that every time you get paid, it splits into, say, 4 or 5 different accounts for tax and for, you know, self-development or R&D or whatever your company account is, and maybe have one for operation costs, one for profit account. Just by doing that, that will solve probably 90% of problems where companies they dissolve because they owe a big VAT bill and they haven't accounted for it, or a corporation tax bill, or, you know, they take too much for themselves. If you could just segregate your accounts and see it for what it is, and remove the emotion from having to make transactional actions, that'll probably solve 90% of the problems with finances in business.
It would help someone's belief as well, because I think the management of money, people have such poor habits that's why they remain stuck, because their habits are so bad and they are consumers, they're spenders, that forces them in a job. Whereas if they were to really get to grips with their salary and not buy your typical, you know, big mortgage, the car, whatever it might be, you're not as trapped.
People only go to earn money at a job to buy things that are more important to them. But the problem is, when they go to a job they hate, they then feel like they need to reward themselves. So then they spend too much stuff on, like, a quick fix of feeling good. And that's the catch-22.
Yeah. The Friday is a great example.
Whereas imagine if you really loved your job. Like, you wouldn't do those escapes. You just wouldn't. In fact, you'd probably stay till 10 p.m. and love it and think, this is amazing, you know, and I can't wait to get back in the morning. You really wouldn't be wanting to escape the job. So, yeah, it's important to get a job that you at least enjoy.
But I'm sitting here and I think everything you're saying is so obvious. Like, you know, where people spend what they've pretty much earned at the weekend, and it's this cycle that never really ends, and it's very hard to get off that treadmill. I do think, why did more people not see this? Like, why can't you see that you are creating your own cycle by spending habits? Because a big percentage of all of this is consumer spending.
Yeah. Well, I think it's two things. One, they're they've accepted that that's the path they should be on. They should be happy with a job that they hate. Their mum and dad told them that you just have to get a job and then get a house and then get married and have kids and all this stuff, and they've followed that path. So now they're just thinking, well, I've just got to grin and bear this. This is life. So they've accepted that. And then, well, that's the main one. And then the second one is like they fear what other people think. They have this unrealistic expectation of what life should be like, and that depresses them. So they feel like they need to keep up with the Joneses or, you know, boost their status somehow artificially with means that they can't afford. And then that gets them even more enslaved into a rut of money, which is where most people are. And that is not just people on 20 grand a year. That is people on 150 grand a year.
Yeah.
In fact, it's worse up that end.
Well, we've shared it. I mean, actually, I'll have it pop up again, although it was on my previous video. Mac will just share this screenshot, and the guy said the only thing that working hard for like 15 odd years, it'll be on screen, has got me is a broken body.
Yeah.
And it's totally true. Just before we move on, reverse engineer successful blueprints. That's the other thing. There's so many blueprints out there. They don't lie. You're no different from anyone else who's been successful or sold companies or built companies. You've just got to copy the blueprint. Internal rewire. So let's run through this, right? Old world versus new world. Money is a tool. It's not evil. You don't need a job. Failure is not a bad thing. You don't need money to make money. Change your social circle fast. Job security is a big fat lie. You are in control, stop blaming. Perfect never comes, better does. Are there any that sort of stick out to you that you see, or something that, you know, I don't know, ever sort of happened to you that was a realisation?
Well, yeah. I mean, one that covers off a lot of that really is the fact that you have to be able to stomach praise and reprimand. Or support and challenge. So support and challenge is something that is a polar opposite of each other, but they're both required for growth. And I think of it like this. So we was talking about pleasing and appeasing mum and dad. Most people can't stomach the disapproval of two people, their mum and dad, right? If you're to go out and put yourself out there, and I was talking at an event yesterday and someone said this is the reason that they weren't on YouTube or whatever, because they were 50 years old and they were worried about what people think. And you know, this is a real problem that's going through people's head. But if you get 10 followers, you know, those followers are going to love you, but there'll be 10 people, whatever it is you're trying to do in the world, there'll be someone dedicated their life to burn down what you're trying to build. That's how the universe is structured. That's for balance, right? And it's stupid to think that it would be any other way. Like, everything is in perfect balance. So for every idea or every opinion or every business you try and build, there'll be a party of people or one person dedicated to the opposite. So if you go out and you get 10 followers, you'll get 10 haters, right? And you might think, well, I can deal with 10 people that don't hate me. But you get 100 followers, you get 100 haters. You get 1,000 followers, 1,000 haters. If you get to 172 million people that love you and 172 million people that hate you, you're at the Donald Trump level, where literally half the country hate him, half the country love him, and it's the amount of people that hate you that you can stomach will stop you growing, right? Because they're going to be there anyway, so it's how many you can stomach, and that is what's going to stop you. So if you're stuck on your mum and dad, you're never going to get past 2 people, right? If you're stuck on the fact that it's uncomfortable for 10 people to hate you, you're never going to raise your circle of influence. You're never going to push your, you know, to build the life that you want beyond the amount of people you can stomach that won't like you. And it's crazy to think. I mean, how arrogant have you got to be to think that no one will hate you? It's madness. It's madness.
You know, it's so funny you're saying all this. I'm going to, Mac, pop it up on screen. I had someone reach out to me on YouTube who left a comment saying, Aaron, thanks so much. I've started my YouTube channel, and the one person that doesn't think I'm going to be successful and thinks it's a waste of time is my mum. And that comment would have popped up on screen now. And she can't get her head round that if he can replace his salary, she's still saying, well, you still need a job if you're on YouTube. And his not a hater, but the one who doesn't believe and is basically trying to put him off is his own mum, and they will be in your life. The other thing is, I spoke with a guy called Ian O'Shea who booked a call with me. What you just said is stopping him going from camera. He said, he posted his first few videos and he got like 2-3 people oppose him and he backed completely off. He said, it totally put me off.
Yeah.
And I said, dude, I've had videos do over 200k and I had 90% of them hate on me.
Yeah.
It's just thick skin. But I think my way of coping with that, I don't know how you know, if you get anything like that, but, you know, I'll say some pretty punchy things at times. I just think in 100 years, none of you are going to be here. And none of you were in front of my face.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty tasty at boxing, but you know, like, I just, because I'm saying a message that's true to me, I think that's the other thing. If you're doing something you're passionate about, you know, you really do have to take the punches because there is someone who's going to be willing to throw them.
Like, it's knowing your thing, right? Which is your knowledge. Learn the game, right? So who's going to tell me? Like, I don't care if someone says this guy don't know what he's talking about with money. I mean, I'm like, honestly, I really don't care. If I was ripped and I had a 6-pack and I had like really great health, and someone said, "Oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about nutrition." Oh well, okay, but people do seem to focus on, 100 positives. They'll focus on the one negative. But I will say this. The only reason it hurts, I said support and challenge is what helps you grow. The only reason it hurts is because it's true.
Yeah.
Right? So if it hurts, it's true. So you might have had 90% of them comments, but one of them might have said, "Oh, you put on a bit of weight," or whatever. and if you're thinking, "I'm really not happy with my weight at the moment," you know, it will hurt you, but great. Thank you. You know, that is what I need. I need that to go, I needed to do something about that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to do that now.
Mr. Beast said, if you're starting content or you're starting a business, you need people in your corner who are going to say, that could have been better.
Of course.
Because then you're going to improve. And that just ties into all of this. I mean, failure is not a bad thing. Like, I've got very used to understanding that if it doesn't work out, again, we've heard it before, it's a tick box. Okay, I don't do it that way.
Yeah.
And learning from people who have failed to go, like you said at the beginning there, don't do that.
Yeah.
Like, the thing is, what we're talking about here today, we've not got it all figured out, but we started and you learn, and that's really it. Like, I will, you know, it's funny you say about there will still be people that will say something about it or whatever we've got to say. There'll always be someone who has got a comment on, our opinions and stuff. And in our last podcast, there was a couple, although it was like 98% in our favour. There was a comment about something like, who are these two privileged? They've never worked a day in their life. It's amazing. Like, you'll always get it, right?
But I do say, like, it's everything I think is trying to get you to be more of you. Yeah. That's what I think like is happening around us all the time. And there's going to be comments that you just think, oh, stupid. But there's going to be comments that hurt. And the ones that hurt are probably trying to get you to be more of you. So it'd be like, oh yeah, I didn't really know what I meant there. You know, I was talking a bit of crap, or I didn't quite have that backed up, or I did step out my lane a little bit there.
Keeps you in check.
Yeah, it just keeps you in check. And you should be appreciative of that. And then it's no longer haters. I love everyone. I love all of my commenters, like everyone.
It's feedback.
Yeah.
It's data. That's what it is. But do have a good look at this internal rewire, because you're going to need to do all 9 and learn it, right? And, you know, this would take us hours to dive into, but these are some of the core things that you just need to train your brain to sort of change and see it in a different light. So look, network and numbers. So before we get into this one, I'll have some photos of Jason and his network, which will be popping up on screen. One of them will be with the big man himself, Richard Branson. I'll have a couple of photos with me and some of my friends. And look, your network, I mean, you're a prime example today. You know things I do not know. You have access to people I don't know. Like, your network is basically like keys to doors.
Yeah.
And for me, it's always been about filling up other people's buckets, trying to offer what you can to certain individuals when you might not think you have a lot to offer. I felt like that a lot in the past, where I always think, why is someone giving me time when I don't really have a lot to offer? But you find ways of building a network. So it's really important. There's just 3 quotes here on your network. Your network is your net worth. Very cliche. We hear it all the time, but it's true. The people you surround yourself with determine the opportunities that you find. Success in business rarely happens alone. I've found that more and more. It's built on the shoulders of connections, collaborations, and shared ideas. And then finally, the right network doesn't just open doors, it teaches you which doors are worth walking through. And I think that's a great case study of, what happened this morning with yourself and Ben. Anything just to add on those three?
Yeah, I think, you learn from people, you have opportunities with people, and then what you find with your network is it becomes this exponential growth in your life where you start to formalize really quick methods of getting what you want, and it almost becomes uncontrollable. It's impossible not to earn. At a level where I am now, I'd have to be really stupid to ever go broke or not be able to make some money or have an introduction to someone, because it's just snowballed, and that tends to be what it does. As long as there's a fair exchange going on and you're aligning yourself with the right people and you align people with your values, one introduction leads to 5, 5 leads to 50, and then I spoke yesterday at an event in front of thousands of people, all as a result of just little networks and introductions, and I find myself on a stage in front of thousands of people, and it's very hard not to make money at that point, very hard not to get more eyeballs on me at that point.
You almost feel a little bit untouchable.
Yeah, it's kind of that. You have to be really, really stupid to not make that work, because now those thousands of people have seen me. I'm now on their social media and their memory, and they've got books, and so Necker Island was a good one of exponential growth, right? So I go from knowing people in business, expanding that to some influential group of people, getting invited to Necker Island, go on to Necker Island, sat with 40 multi-deca millionaires, and billionaires. Now I'm on a WhatsApp group with those guys. Now it's like, well, should we do a podcast? Should we do this? Should we do that? And it's like building relationships at that level. And if you imagine now, if I wanted to start a business now, the path to a successful route is like that. It's like that. So if you're not building networks, I mean, that's just.
Do you know, I said, when we spoke a couple of weeks ago, I was, when I said, you've got 5 minutes. So I'm building this tech company at the moment called Holder, and it's in logistics and distribution. And I I've done what I could. And I remember saying to you, I feel a little bit like I'm out of my depth, or I don't really know. And I have to say, when I got off the phone to you and you said, mate, it's fine. Like, I know how to do this and I know people and blah, blah, blah. I got off and I felt so much relief because I was at a point where I felt stuck.
Right.
And I could kind of make a struggle by trying to do things. But when I got off the phone to you, I felt like it was such a relief to hear, almost like, it's fine. We can figure things out, and there's a path. You just, and it does. It really helps when you have a network.
Because everyone's winging it to a degree, and if you've got more people helping you wing it, then they just give you more insight or more kind of their perspective on things, which makes you wing it better. And like, even at that level, even talking to Richard Branson, right? I said, "What are you up to, Rich? Are you doing anything of your own?" And he was like, "Yeah, our next thing's like trying to compete with Eurostar." And I'm like, "All right, what, you just doing that on your emails on the side, but in between breakfast and swimming a flipping 5K?" But he was doing that, and he's just launched it. But when you talk to him about it, it's brand new. He doesn't know. Like, he knew a bit about trains, but now he's trying to pretend he's bigger than he is. It's
that element of starting, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's doing.
Yeah, just doing it and figuring it out. And even at that level, they don't really know for certain what they're doing. It's just, this is a new thing. Eurostar have had the monopoly on that since the tunnel was built. There's been no other company that's done that. So he is literally doing something that he does not know anything about. So
that is the power of who you know.
Yeah.
And that's why it's I would say it's a crucial part of a business journey, is to get around the people who have done it or are doing it, just not only for inspiration, but learning and being able to tap in, and it's like a key that unlocks any door.
Another story, actually. There was a girl called Joanna on Necker. great girl. She started a company called Nix, and it's a fashion company. It done tremendously well in Canada and Australia, I think. Sold for like $360 million. And now she's just launched a company called Minted, not a company, but a section of that brand called Minted, which is men's underwear. And when we was in Necker Island, bearing in mind she's built this business, so she's there just having conversations about what she's doing, starting this brand called Minted, which is men's boxers, men's underwear. And she was like thinking about men models and like six-pack abs and all this kind of stuff, and like, you know, catwalk models. And then Daniel Priestley, funnily enough, says what people want to see is real men.
Yeah.
You know, this is like Jason, this is Josh, this is whoever, and he does this business, and he's a real man, and this is like, and they're in good shape, and this is this is what a minted man is. And that's what she ran with. Just on that conversation, ran with that, launched this week. It's just been phenomenal. Like, it's just taken off. But it was that winging it. It was like, so he was winging it, she was winging it, but his idea gave her another idea, and now it's like, oh, let's try this.
It just expands, doesn't it, and turns into things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, I mean, I'm very blessed with the network I've got, and it does keep me inspired. And again, if you haven't got the right people around you, go and find them. And then I always hear people say, but how? Quick answer. Go on Eventbrite and book a ticket. Get a train ticket and go into London or your biggest city and go from event to event to event, and DM people online. Like, you know, be bold.
Yeah.
Now, numbers. If you can't manage your personal money, you'll never manage business money. Discipline doesn't switch on when the stakes get higher. Knowing your numbers isn't about spreadsheets. It's about control. When you understand where your money goes, you control your future, not your fears. And then finally, financial awareness turns chaos into strategy. The moment you understand your numbers, you stop guessing and start growing. I think that sums it up perfectly in terms of, well, good money habits, and knowing where every penny goes matters when trying to achieve sustainability and also being profitable.
Yeah, I think just like all three of those, just some way you can improve all of that just with one simple thing is just check your bank balance every day.
Yeah.
Like, just log on to your bank, get close. A lot of people are scared to log into their bank or scared to, and you know, just log in, get really close to your money, because whatever you focus on grows, because your energy naturally goes there. If you log in and check your bank balance every single day, the intention is there to improve that, and it will go up. Like, I've never seen that not happen. You log in every day, commit to doing it every day, you'll get closer to your money, closer to your numbers, and your focus will change, your habits will change. You'll have a guilt of wasting money, and it will grow. If you could just do that, it will bring you closer to your money.
Ignorance is bliss, they say, but on that front, I wouldn't say that's the case.
No.
Have rule of thumbs. Like, if I think I'm going to spend money on things I shouldn't do, like food or whatever, I always top up my money box.
Yeah.
Because then subconsciously I'm thinking, well, I don't want to spend double what I've just put into my money box. So, like, little habits. Market and validate. Why, what, how? Is there a demand? Ask questions, collect data, test. Produce high volumes of emotion triggering content. We'll just explain that. Analyze data, then begin building. So just very quickly, why, what, and how, and is there a demand? I think you need to understand a business, or going from employee to entrepreneur. It can't just be because, well, I like it. Like this tech company, I do like it, but I'm not building it because I like it. I know that there is a massive problem. I've seen the data.
Yeah.
So I have my why, what, and how. I have a plan. How important is that in the beginning? Because that's where I've seen a lot of hiccups where people are like, oh, it didn't work.
Yeah.
But you liked it. There wasn't a demand.
Yeah, I mean, I see people start ideas all the time, and ideas are crap, unfortunately, because you put all of your money and effort and energy into building this one thing to get it perfect, and you launch it and wonder why no one wants to buy it. And you know, you just have to go down our high street and see that there's these restaurants and certain shops that just open and close every 6 months. Like, someone else tries it, someone else tries it, and it's like, there's something wrong. Me personally, I've always been a fan of building to demand, and the reason being is because it gives you, well, there's so many benefits, but let's just say that I survey someone and say, look, what are you interested in West Sussex? And I see this pattern that they like, clay pigeon shooting or something, or whatever it might be, and then you can say, well, how many of them are women and men, and what's the biggest problem when you've done other shoots? Well, it might be mud in your cars and all this kind of stuff, and no good access and stuff, and then you can start to tailor questions to, like, well, if this existed, what would you like about, what would be your ideal clay pigeon shoot or whatever, and they'll tell you. And then you can build something that there's already a demand for, and then you can even ask people what they'd be willing to pay for that thing, right? And then you could even go, we're taking memberships up front, we're going to be opening this thing soon, and here's how much it's going to cost. You can lock in a deal by signing up for a year straight away as a VIP, and you get paid to build the thing, and then you've got all this money, and you can go, right, let's build it, or let's open it, and you've got confidence that you're going to sell it, confidence that you haven't got to worry about money. And the worst that can happen is if you decide that you don't want to build it, and you just give their money back, and you've lost nothing. So one big question that you can ask in your business, which I always ask, and it doesn't matter how much money we generate, we always do this: how can I get the next thing for free? How can I grow for free? And there'll be people around you can, offer their services in a fair exchange for exposure, or there'll be people who want to just jump on, you've inspired them to get on board with this mission of yours, that want to go along for the ride. There'll be fair exchange deals, so you can say, like, if I give you some consultancy, can you do this for my product, or give me this advice? And there's always a way of doing it. If I wanted to go on a retreat, I could then reach out and say, listen, it's 20 grand for me to go on this retreat. Well, how about if I bring 10 of my closest networks and fill your spaces? I can come for free. Yeah. And then I'm on a 25 grand retreat for free, you know? So how can you get the next thing for free? That's a really powerful question to get into.
Creativity. Everything you've said is creativity. Thinking outside the box. But you might not have thought of that because of, again, going back just to remind you so that you're thinking this way. You might not think like what Jason's just said because of suppression, because for so long you haven't thought for yourself. But, it is about stepping outside. I just want to share.
No one would do that. That's what people say. No one would do that. Well, how am I going to get it for free? And that is it. Yeah.
Do you know one of the best examples? Let me tell you all this real quick, right? If you're an artist, a painter, and you paint in your garage, right? If you had a setup here and you were painting away, and you never had a camera on, and you never shared it, and you did it in a really unique way, your painting, if you're not a established artist, was worth nothing. There's a guy on TikTok now who's like 14 million followers. One of his videos recently, because I shared this yesterday on a call, did something like 33 million. He had all of his cameras, great editing. He hung from the ceiling, and then he punched these paint pots, and he like threw it, and it was on a spindle thingy, and it was just colourful, and it had a start, a middle, and an end, and it ended up getting 33 million. Now, he's just an artist. He isn't, as far as I'm aware, he's no Van Gogh. But the fact that is one painting now that has 33 million views has been seen by everyone. I can only imagine it's worth tens of thousands because there's only one of them, but it's had eyes on it, eyes on the prize. That was creativity.
You look like Van Gogh a little bit.
Well, it's the ear.
No, but I shared this yesterday with someone who came up and queued to speak to me after my talk, and they said, I've got a food van or a bar that I do like parties with. And I said, are you filming it? And they went, no. And I said, well, I've got a friend called Adam who is in St Albans, and he runs peddling pizzas, and it's him in a pizza wagon, and he live streams him filming pizzas all day. For 4 hours, people are watching him create pizzas.
Spudman, Spud Bros.
Yep. And now he's taken a YouTube channel from 0 to over 100,000 in about 6 months just from doing that. And he's massive. He's now got massive partnerships with Gosney, who are a pizza oven company.
He's just rolling in it.
He's been paid to go and, like, well over the odds to go and do these parties and stuff because they want him there just because he filmed making pizzas. And there's another van not filming it.
Because he took the initiative to go, do you know what? I'm going to put myself in a place of real discomfort.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do what, again, this all goes back to this, not doing what everyone else does. We have this abundance of opportunity.
Shout out to Adam at Peddling Pizzas, by the way. He's a
Peddling Pizzas.
Quality content creator.
I don't know who he is, but there we go. Shout out to Adam. But ask questions, collect data, test, produce high volumes of emotion triggering content so you get feedback, analyze the data, and then just dive the F in and begin building. Now, systems and scale, this is something that I've learned a lot from you. This is like your this is your area where you just sort of seem to know everything. This is where I struggle a little bit, and I'm sure some people also do, because this is one of the more technical sides of the day and age that we live in, but you can learn it, right? Systems and scaling. Again, we're in this great new world, I'll emphasize, where you can set something up, you can create evergreen content, you can create evergreen systems, processes, VSOPs, and you can use all of these free, mostly free here. There's paid and free versions where you can set up workflows and automations. And this is, just to remind people, this is where a lot of these quotes and sayings come from, where you can now start 1-man, 2-man, 3-man band businesses and scale to 7 figures, 8 figures, and even 9 figures simply by using systems that we have available on our phones and on our laptops.
Yep.
So, this is your area.
This is, I mean, I've been through it all. So I came from a world where I used to buy copies of AutoCAD for £2,500 a copy per laptop, per PC, for a CD. And very difficult, right? Microsoft Suite used to cost £400 for the basic suite, and that was an lump of money. Adobe and Acrobat and readers like that used to cost £500-600. And then now you've got the software that you're £4,000 out of pocket. You've now got to then go and market the thing, and you've got to go and have another platform to go and build these systems, or pay some accountant to come and do all this tech stuff that you just don't quite understand. That's all gone. Like now you're talking like 20-30 quid a month, £100 a month maximum, for an entire suite of a team, a corporation in your pocket that does things way more advanced than you could ever comprehend. And now with AI, you can automate the whole thing together so that it just does it without you even having to do it. So if you don't master, like, I would highly recommend that you spend some time around some of these platforms, very, very lean, very, very cheap products and services available out there to perform everything that you need to do in your business. And then have a play around with some AI on how to automate it all, because if you don't master delegation, you'll really start to resent the business. And I think that's the next challenge people get to, where they go, do you know what, I've got the business working now. I thought it'd be hard, but now I don't, I'm doing everything. Yeah. And then they're like, fuck it, I don't know about this. And then they take a step back. But if you can just master delegation from day one and start to play around with this stuff and try and say, right, I did this system and I did this process, how can I not do that? Or how can I get that done simply and quickly, or get someone else to do it, or automate that, or train this process once and then never have to train it again by using like Loom or something, all of that stuff starts to liberate you from the inside of the business, until the point, you've got something working on automation, or at least it does a lot of the heavy lifting in the business. This
also goes to show how scary things are going to be for some jobs over the next 5 years, because, accountants, architects, those job roles are going to be reduced. One of my friends, his missus has literally just lost her job as an accountant, right, because they're using a system. All the agreements we've got for the tech company is just been ChatGPT and then straight into a DocuSign. And so we haven't had to use a solicitor, which may have cost, what does a solicitor charge for agreements? 120 quid per letter, or whatever it might be. You can streamline. And for anyone wondering, going, well, some of these software might cost me £50 to £100 a month. Well, don't go out, stop spending money on restaurant meals and going out. And because you do have the cash there, it's just that your priorities might not be into, buying the thing. The other thing is as well, you just touched on it. So, we just spoke about it. For me, building this tech company, I just said to you that all of the funds that we raise will be going into building a team, which actually ties very nicely into our top tips here. Is these two: live on less and outsource ASAP. Yeah, that's also something that I've done very well. PR for me, editor, a VA, things that take up time but aren't high value tasks. I've outsourced, and kind of really aligned really well to what you've just said. Is so number one, top tip: learn to live on less. Yeah, I learned this when I was 13 years old. Fortunately, I wanted a BMX, and
my parents said, look, 6 months to your birthday, we can't afford the BMX, but we'll give you half if you raise half the money. I went out and washed the car. I got £7, and then I gave my stepdad £7 to get another bucket and sponge so my mate could help. And the next day, washed 4 cars. And then within 4 weeks, I had 4 friends washing cars. And at that point, I was just knocking on doors. I didn't have any black fingernails anymore or wrinkly hands. And I remember thinking, if I use money this way, I can still get what I want. I'm still going to get the bike. It might take a little bit longer to get the bike, but I'm enjoying this. It's now something that's not a short-term thing to get the bike. It's actually something that is amazing. I can get anything I want now.
Yeah.
And I'm doing jobs that I enjoy. Like, I'm just talking to people, booking in their next thing and taking the money and counting the money and paying. When you paid the kids, they were like, oh, thanks. They'll run off and get their, they couldn't believe it. And what a great feeling that was. And I took that into work, in the world of work. It was like, if you can just sacrifice initial profits and delegate and automate and build systems, you'll get 10x, 100x what you thought you would get in the end. But the difference is you'll stand the test of time because you'll be inspired by doing what you're doing, and you won't be doing all that stuff that makes you resentful and it makes you give up.
I do think there is something that's built into people like me and you, because we all sort of have done similar things. Like, I did clean cars for like a couple of days. I did clean a couple of cars. I bought a bucket, I had the sponge, and I went round charging a £5. I sold dust caps at school, and I sold 2 dust caps for £1. Won't tell you how I got the dust caps. I used to go around on a BMX collecting the dust caps. And
unwanted dust caps.
But I did these little things, and I sold sweets, and you kind of trial all different things just to make a bit of money. I do think there's something embedded in some people, but if that's not you, it is important that you learn to outsource your weaknesses, because school has told us for so long that, well, if you get it wrong, that's a bad thing, and you need to work on your weaknesses. I don't know how to put up a shelf. I mean, you can build pretty much anything, mate. I can't. If this door was hanging off, go to Ethan. Don't ask me. I wouldn't be able to do it, but I am happy to call the builder, and I have that. I'm very resourceful. So work on your strengths. A players only. On this is really important for me, especially for 2026. I put out a post saying I am going to be borderline uncontactable, if that's even a word, in 2026, because, as you know, that there are things now after this event which has drained the living life out of me. I purely want to go in all on this tech company and my brand. And those are the 2 core things.
Yeah.
And the education side of it. And I don't want any distractions. So apart from a few key people, no one will be able to get hold of me.
Yeah.
So A players, like, how important, just quickly on that, has it been for you? Well, Necker Island is an example.
A players, but also A players, like, again, going back to the last point about sacrificing profit to get somewhere better and quicker. Every kind of high level mastermind that I've been part of over the last few years, the guys there are all basically restructuring their companies to do away with the kind of people that are giving them a headache and just go spend triple the amount on someone who's amazing, like a killer, in the business. And they all seem to go, do you know what? I just want the best CMO, and I want the best CEO or whatever, and they're just going after the best people and paying more to highly valued, skilled people that want to work and want to produce to get somewhere quicker and better and with less headache. So A players in business, absolutely key. Hanging around with A players, I don't know, I don't ever consider myself an A player, so, but
it's leverage of the A players.
Yeah, for sure.
It's the learning aspect. Which does tie into 0 distractions. You're very good at that. I've become very good at that.
I'm very good at that.
Yeah, I would say this year, actually, I've really dialed that in. Typically, in an office environment or warehouse, wherever you work, I mean, my last place was a prime example. Distractions were left, right and centre and above and below. A lot of gossip, a lot of drama. You get used to that drama taking on other people's baggage, and that becomes a big distraction. Procrastination, wasting of time, doom and gloom, whatever it might be. 0 distractions really allows you to make fast, aggressive progression, doesn't it?
Yeah. 0 distractions allows you to objectively see what needles you're moving, where you're going, what you need to change, and if you've got everything going on at once or you're spreading yourself too thin, you find yourself getting not a lot done on anything. So it comes down to having a strong belief in what you want out of your life, knowing who you are, where you're going, what your goals are, and then just like write a massive list of what are the benefits, like 50 benefits of me achieving this goal. And then expand that out to like, what would be the benefits to me? What would be the benefits to my health, wealth, wisdom, relationships, partnerships? What would be the benefits to my family, my extended family, my community, my house, whatever, and just keep going until you literally write new neural pathways in your brain. You shift beliefs, you shift priorities so that you think it'd be ridiculous for me to have that distraction now. You know, it would cost me. So if you work out what that costs and the value of those benefits, it's now costing you that to do that distraction. And sometimes that's people doing emails or cleaning the flipping toilet, you know, and that is costing you £10,000 per hour cleaning that toilet. And that's how I, you know, get to grips with what's a distraction and what isn't.
It's a metric, isn't it?
Yeah.
And also it's a boundary as well. Processes and VSOPs. I've become very good at this because it saves me time, headache, and I don't have to think so much. If I have a process and I have like almost like a guideline, it needs to fit within sort of my guidelines of what I'm willing to do, or if it makes sense. Again, kind of what you just said there really is that how much would it cost me, whether that be money or time. Processes and VSOPs, I tend to build processes if I repeat myself once or twice, or if it's something I've done a few times. I mean, how important has that been?
Oh, well, you know me, man. I've got processes for everything. I've got literally processes for everything. So, it helps me keep structured, keeps me in a routine, keeps my memory good because I don't have to I've got a process for something that I can visualize, right? And if someone needs help or someone asks for some advice, I've got this process that I can pull out and just say, do this.
Like making an investment, like you were saying
exactly
earlier,
that.
you have a
checklist.
You have a
I've got a checklist, an internal checklist. When I go to the gym, how I go to the gym. It's just all processes just allow you to keep consistent. And then you get results when you're consistent, right?
Structure.
It might be a bad result, it might be a good result, but when you're consistent, you can see what you need to do to change it. So if you don't have processes in place in your personal life or in job or business or whatever, you're kind of random. And I can't work with random because I don't know the projected result.
Farting in the wind.
Yeah. I haven't got time for that.
I think this has been great. Look, this was all around shifting definitely your mindset and your belief and what it takes to do that. So look, learning the game, I can't stress enough about you don't know what you don't know. It's as simple as that. We don't have to overcomplicate it. You need to start learning. The second part, which I think is probably one of the biggest holdback, is the internal rewire, because it's so complex for many of you, your family, your friends, your peers, your judgment, your job. Depending on how old you are, you know, can you teach an old dog new tricks? I believe so, but it may take longer. Your network and your numbers, market and validate, and then your systems and scale. And I think if you look at that, it's methodical.
Yeah.
Don't have emotion involved. This is a process. And also I think, look, going from employee to entrepreneur, you might have that fire in you already. But I'll just give you a time frame. For me, it took me 7 years to leave my job. I was already entrepreneurial, but to learn and do the rewire, because I still had to rewire myself.
Yeah.
I knew there was more to life, but I did have to do, you know, I was very lucky I had supportive parents as well that still don't understand necessarily what I do and stuff. But I had a supportive network family-wise, but I had to get my network and my numbers up to scratch. I did have to do the whole market and validate. And then, as you well know, I'm learning systems and scalability and, you know, really it's a 360. It doesn't really end, I don't think.
No, for me, just on that, I was 16, I was 15 when I started working as an electrician. When I came out of school, I went into college 1 day a week. I very quickly realised that I couldn't go into the fire brigade. It was hard to get into. I kept trying, kept getting knocked back. And by the time I got accepted, I was earning more money in my job, so it just didn't make sense. But I knew at that point I don't want to be on the tools, so I very quickly put a plan in place with an intention to not want to ever be an electrician for the rest of my life. So by the time I was 19, I was earning about 65 grand a year, just from a decision that I don't want to stay here. So now I'm going to lead this team. Then I'm going to teach this team. Then I'm going to write software. Then I'm going to, manufacture control panels. And now I'm going to design all of that stuff. And it was a really quick process, to the point where I was 23, I started my own business. And I started the own business with the insights of how I wouldn't do it in that company. It was like, that is not what you want to do. Here's how to make it better. I know I've got the confidence to do it all now, so now I jump ship and go and do it. So it was a belief. It still took longer than it would today. Like today, you can just go and do it like in a few months. It's like it's crazy.
I just want to share something, right? When I first came to Jason, I told you about this tech startup idea, which I had in 2019, but really it's been founded and started this year in the last few months. I showed you what it could be. I had my original concept. And literally it was like a couple of days later, because I'm not techie, you'd basically built a prototype and you were like, mate, I've done this in 20 minutes. Jason technically could have, you could have probably created like the whole MVP. But what Ben has done, he's the tech side of it. I I don't process that way. But what he's been able to build as an MVP before we even take on, before the tech co-founder starts, is all through the software that's available.
It costs you any software would have cost like probably 25, 30 grand just to get a concept before. Now you can go onto Replit and talk to it about roughly what you want it to do and create, and it will create it in seconds.
It's insane.
Look,
all of you, thanks so much if you've hung around to this point. We hope you've taken a lot from it. And Jason, mate, thanks for your wisdom
thanks
as always.
for having me on.
And until next time, we're going to include Jason's channel. If you haven't checked it out, you need to, because there's so much learning to be done. Go check us out. And for those of you who think, who are these two privileged, never worked a 9 to 5, well, you can go check it out. There's plenty out there to learn from us.
And he's not fat.
I'm not, no, but I am wearing no pants. Well, actually, Jason's wearing no pants either. But yeah, look, until next time, we will see you all on the flip side. Let us know in the comments what you did like. Are you starting a business as well? I always like to know if you are starting a business and what stage you're at. But until then, we will see you all soon. Peace.